So this is the contemplation of the mind, and this is the third week that we are on this subject. And the last week I mentioned that how the mental state arises in combination of the mind base and the mind object, and how that mental character arises. Now here, each mental state that arose, it has a lot to do with how are we living our life. And that's why it comes to the question that the Tusara just asked before that this is a lot to do with the immoral practices. That's a sila, precepts, at least of the 5 precepts. And these 5 precepts, the first one is to not to kill or harm any beings, not to steal or not to take whatever is not given to you, not to have a sexual misconduct, and not to tell lies or not truth, and not taking substance that clouds the mind. And that is quite an important factor here in order to keep the mind base in its true nature, in its pristine purity, unshaken. Right? If we do not observe or practice this at least of these 5 precepts, what's happening is that it's like a simile. The box, rather than sealed it off, you're having a crack in the box. So there's a possibility of water seeping in, or any animals go in, and eventually this box will not be usable, or just rots. And that's similar with this concept that our mind, if we haven't sealed it off with these precepts, then the hindrances will seeping in. You remember hindrances that we discussed last week? So, kama chanda, the sensual pleasure. What else? Vyapada, ill will. What else? Tina meda, and then udacha kukucha, and vichikicha. So tina meda is sleepiness. Udacha kukucha, what's it? Restlessness, right? And the last one, vichikicha, is the doubt. These 5 will seep in. And then as these seep in, that means we haven't got the full confidence within ourselves. And with that lack of a confidence, then we do not have a faith in it. And then we do not want to follow the instructions. And with that, we cannot restrain ourselves. An ability to restrain ourselves basically means that we are allowing this to be a wild. So with that, we are basically allowing this mind object to seeping in at any time. And this mind object is like the object of the 6 senses. So eye sees the object, ear hears the sound, nose smells, and the tongue tastes, and the body feels, and the mind itself thinks about it. And when we are in these stages, what we are having here is these creating the sensation. Although we have discussed on how to diminish this sensation and how to overcome the perceptions, but here we have already overcome the perception, but the feelings are still there. And with this 6 senses coming to the objects, and that is basically becomes the mind object. And because of we have this box with the other hindrances invaded or sprouting in it, objects become not pure. And this object becoming not pure, that's basically that making our thinking becomes unpure. Right? When we are thinking impurity, what happens? Then that's how we are gaining this lustful desires, or the wanting to have material things, or not to want to have them, or generating the resentments, and so on. These 5 hindrances just sprouting more and more. So that's why the basic fundamental part here is to observation of the 5 precepts. And if you remember, we did talk about the precepts, observing the precepts in order to maintain our awareness, or establishing our one-pointed awareness on the object, so that our mind will not be disturbed by anything. And here again, once again, coming back to, initially it was to establish our awareness on the object, so that we are fencing ourselves by observing the precepts. So we are fencing ourselves. And now here, we are observing the precepts not to fence, but to see inside what's in there. Okay? So that's the difference. So with that, what is happening now, that we will be able to recognize our mental state so clear. Untainted mental state will be there now. Right? So the box is fully packed. So packed here, prevention is there. Prevention from arising any negativities. And then avoiding or uprooting, so taking it out. And then a cultivation of the positive principles are there. So starting from the mindfulness that last week we mentioned about the 7 bojjhangas, which is the counterpart for the 5 hindrances. So the mindfulness increases more and more, and we become more able to recognize that what is good and what is bad, what is wholesome and what is unwholesome. Mental states, whenever we are thinking of something, whether that is fruitful or unfruitful, beneficial or not beneficial, wholesome or not wholesome. So we will be able to recognize in that way. And with that recognition, if that is unwholesome, what we are doing? We're just abandoning them. Yeah? And then whatever the wholesome, what we are going to let it to grow. Yeah? Making it to grow. Making it to grow more and more. And with that, making it to grow more and more, what we are doing here is basically making our awareness stronger and stronger. So with that stronger mindfulness, the greediness subsides. Not completely eradicated yet, but it's just like mild now. Hatred or anger also subsides. So less hatred is there. And a delusion also is not there anymore, because our mind is so alert now in this case. So another word is used in this case to recognize that as our mind is in the Buddha nature now. Unpolluted by the worldly affairs, but the knowledge of a knowing. Yeah? So the Buddha nature is there. Alertness, awakeness, and knowing what's happening there. So that's the mental state there. So with that, having this Buddha nature, or this a mind, now this moment is the moment that we can shape it to anywhere now. We become a person to make this mind to be wherever we want it to be. And that's how we feel glad. It's like you get something what you wanted for a long time. how do you feel? You feel so glad, right? Or you haven't seen someone someone you met long time ago, and you haven't seen that person for many years, and suddenly you see that person, you feel so glad. Similarly, our mind, we lost it long time ago. And finally able to recognize and find this mind. And when we find that, it's like long gone friend coming to meet together and like going for the parties. Let's go wherever, whatever we want to do. Let's have a fun. So mind becomes in that stage. So in this stage, what's happening here, that we, when we have different minds, we can leave it there, or whenever the mind that we want, so we want it to be there. And so that's why this stage of the mental state is the state that you can decide whatever your mind want to be, whichever state you want to be. And it's so beautiful when you recognize, oftentimes it makes you feel the joy that arises in your heart, and heart becomes so blossoming. I don't know how the word, but it's like this uplifting feeling. Uplifting feeling. And then suddenly you feel your whole face smiles, and then that smile actually projecting the satisfaction of recognition what's happening, and you are deciding where you want to be, where your mental state is to be, like that. So that's why the second tretra of this third tretra, or the 10th, gladdening comes. So mind simply feels so glad. Right? So you become glad. So that's why sometimes you see when you're suppose you're able to recognize your the activities of this mind and how this is affecting, suddenly you feel smiling to yourself without knowing. It's not like a mentally trouble, but you simply recognize the pure nature of yourself, your mental state, and that time you can have this smile at yourself. And that smile actually coming from this feeling of the gladness, which is quite similar to the rapture. Similar to the rapture, when you felt that rapture, because the rapture is also the outcome of having a one concentrated mind, or having a one object, one pointed awareness. So that moment the rapture simply comes. So similar way, here the rapture, we're talking about the feeling, but here the rapture is in a state of the mind, right? And that's projecting through our mental state, through our physical expression. Yeah? So this gladdening is actually very good. It actually encourages us to practice more. And in the meantime, in the same time, it is also helps us to recognize that how good to see this mind, and how this mind could be polluted and could be purified. So that's why in here we will be able to see the cause and effects now. Right? Cause and effects. What is making my mind to be polluted, and what is making mind to be pure now. And here it starts from a simple mindfulness, that each awareness of this small micro level of this mind connecting to the mental objects, this whole the process is coming to be either the pollution or the pure state of the mind. So that's why here, when we recognize an ability to see these process, actually we are coming back to understand the dependent origination. Because of this is happening. If not this, that doesn't happen. So because of this lack of restraint, because of a lack of restraint, what's happening? We are polluting our mind or developing the greed, the hatred, and delusional states of the mind. Whereas if our mind was, initially we were able to restrain with the sila, then this won't be in this case like that. So this is a cause and effect, and how these cause and effects are affecting our mental state like that. Right? So this gladdening is the next the principles that we are able to discern. Right? So I think I will stop on that gladdening, which is known as abhipamodayang chittang. Right? And during that time again, the breath is still in the background. Right? Breath is still in the background, but we will be able to the recognizing of that gladdening state. Or basically, I am so satisfied to see this pure, untainted, or how this taints come in, and how this mental state changes. So that's a satisfied state of the mind. Right? So I end here. I will focus other principles in following weeks. So anybody wants to add, or any question you want to ask on that? It's actually it reminds me one simile. Sometimes when you come to this stage, often we'll have a question that if only the mind, then where are those 4 elements gone? It's like the earth, water, fire, and a wind. What happens with it, and how can we disregard of that? If it's only the mind is taking place. And in this stage, there is a quite interesting story actually. This one monk, after meditating for some time and gaining this a higher state of the absorptions, and able to recognize this mind, how this mind functions, conditions. Then suddenly he had this thought comes in, and questions about this 4 elements. And then he thought that rather than asking a human beings, I better go and ask with the so-called celestial beings. So he moved on to the 4 guardian gods. It's called Chatu Maharajikas, 4 guardian gods. With his the ability of jhanas, he was able to communicate with them. So he goes to their congregation, and then he speaks about it. How can I finish this 4 without finding the end of it? So how to find the end of this 4 elements, or something like that. And then this guardian gods then say, oh, we don't know, you better go and ask the higher gods. So he went on to the higher gods, and then went on to the higher gods, and everybody say, I don't know. So go on to the higher realms and higher realms. And it comes to the end, it's called the great Mahabrahmas, which is the top Brahma levels, which everybody thinks that this Brahma, or the Mahabrahma, this top level of this Brahma world, all other realms thinks that he knows. When this monk asked him, and he say, "Oh, I am the Brahma, and I am the knower of this and that," and then the monk say, I know you are, but I want to know where is this the four elements ends." And then after 3 times, and he said that, I do not want to tell you in front of other celestial beings that I also don't know. So you better go and ask to the Buddha. Then he goes back to the Buddha and the temple where he was there. So, and he went to ask the Buddha. Then and the Buddha said that rather than try to find where the 4 elements end, better find where this 4 elements doesn't involve. So that's the mind. And that's the stage. Once we practice and eventually attain that liberation, also known as the Nibbana. So this place where these 4 elements is not involved, free from it. So that's why the mind comes here, the pure mind, untainted and clear mind. And so with that mind, if we can maintain, so then that goes up to the liberation. So here again, once again, we have to remember, I mentioned last week that in order to understand the 3rd tretra of this Anapanasati, we have to understand the 4 foundations of a mindfulness. The 4th section, the contemplation of the phenomena. When we contemplate on the phenomena or the mind object, so basically we are learning to recognize and understand the true mental state. And when we understand this true mental state, then the 4th tretra of this Anapanasati becomes much, much easier. And it's like just like this. Okay. Right, any question? Any sharing? Any thoughts on it? If not, then okay, I will just, I just got another thought on that. In that satisfying, there are 2 types of satisfying. One satisfaction is called worldly satisfaction, and another one is the unworldly, but also it's like achievements. So worldly satisfaction is like when we receive material things, things that you wish to have, things that you want to get, and the moment when you receive that material things and you are satisfied, you're happy, and that's how you feel so glad that it's been a so long time, now I got it. So that's getting what you want, the material things. So that is also satisfying here, called apipamodaya. That's the worldly happiness. The second one is called the insight happiness, or the unworldly. This insight happiness is ability to recognize the true nature of the mind and understanding that this mind itself is inconstant, impermanent. Right? So when you recognize this mind itself is inconstant and impermanent, then that also gives you a satisfaction. Which if you recognize that the mind base is so clear, it's just a base, nothing is there, and this nothing, the clear mind, like I gave you a simile, was the white cloth. This white cloth, whenever the mind object comes in, it becomes polluted into the likeness, or dislike, pleasurable, unpleasurable, and greed, hatred, and all, whatever you name it. And this all actually also will not last long. It changes. And that changing nature, actually the realization of it, and that gives us a satisfaction. That gives us satisfaction. And from there again, if we come to the initial stage, the mind best, and this itself also not stable. It is also flickering all the time. So that's why mind will not be alone at any time. It will be coming, or it will be with something at all the time. And eventually it comes to the stage that this mind itself become void. That's why I call it empty. So the vijnana becomes a voidness. It's called I forgot the name for vijnana anidasana. Yeah. So that's called a vijnana anidasana. Come to the stage that the consciousness itself, the knower itself, become inactive. So that's the stage. So vijnana anidasana. Okay. Right, I think I end here. It's a bit too much, I think, going into too detail, and it's very difficult to grasp. But eventually we will get there. Just a matter of practicing and recognizing the breath, and eventually we're able to recognize the body, feeling, and then how this mind start working. I think I have mentioned a long time ago that sometimes when I go for arms around, this is a tradition that monks will go and collect the food from other members of the community. And there was a time when I went for alms, and when that person is giving alms or the food, oftentimes my mind is in negative state. And the moment when it arises, then I straight away able to catch it. This is coming. And when this coming, and I catch that, and after catching that mental state, it comes to like a stage of such a state that's so satisfying that I managed to catch it. I'm so happy. And now I can change it into wherever I want to. So with that, often I change that mind into the appreciation and the gratitude and the kindness. And when I manage to transform this into that stage, then suddenly my heart simply uplifts and feel so grateful, and then I just feel like so happy. So that's why the practice actually makes us to able to recognize that and able to catch it in that very moment when it's transforms from one to another, and that gives us a real satisfaction, and that gives us a real happiness, the gladness of yourself. Right? So that's the stage here we're talking about. So that's gladness. Okay. Right, with this, let's practice loving kindness meditation, if you don't have any questions to ask. So, sitting in comfortable position. reflect for a few moments on tonight's discussion, how you feel the gladdening the mind or satisfying the mind, a satisfaction of a recognition of this mental state. So generally we are working with the mental states, the greediness, wanting, or hatred, or anger, delusion, stable, unstable, concentrated, unconcentrated, and so on. But when we recognize these states, in a practice, it allows to see the true nature of this mind beyond these mental states, beyond the conditions. Just that pure consciousness, the awareness. Now we'll practice the loving kindness meditation. So bring your attention to observe the sensations in your body. And bring that attention to your hands. Feel the sensations in your hands. And to your heart. And feel the beating heart. If you can't feel the beating heart, physically you may smile or put your right hand on your heart area and feel the beating heart. And feel the connection with your heart. And as you feel the connection with your heart, generating loving kindness and compassion to yourself, allowing yourself to be happy, at peace, and free from suffering. And mentally you may recite, I am well, I am happy, I am at peace, I am free from suffering. May I be liberated, liberated. And similarly, sharing loving kindness and compassion to all other sentient beings, starting from near dear one, or any particular person that you think that they need at this time the most. Bring into your mind and sharing these loving thoughts for their welfare and happiness. May you be well, may you be happy, may you be at peace, may you be free from suffering, may you be liberated, liberated. Now extending it to the entire universe, whatever beings there are, visible and invisible beings, in this room, in this country, on earth, in the universe. May they be well, may they be happy, may they be at peace, may they be free from suffering, may they be liberated, liberated.